I'll give you an example of the lack of accountability. Not only have they not acknowledged their own role, what about the role of the people around the president, who to this day say he didn't decide not to run because he had to acknowledge that his loss of mental acuity made it unlikely he could beat Trump. They continue to say he didn't think he could win or he was going to divide the Democratic Party. The story of how they protected him. There's been some piercing of that with foreign leaders saying, anonymously that Biden had this problem or that problem. You had the Wall Street Journal piece, which was actually weak tea about mostly Republicans saying.
It was an absurd piece.
Yeah, so ridiculous. But I know many examples, most of which I can't describe because of the terms in which they were shared with me. But Democratic members of Congress knew full well.
Of course. And that Wall Street Journal piece, the editors of the Wall Street Journal, I'll just say I think are very dishonest, but I know that they are, but some of them. But that piece was really the only piece in a big publication to make the point that, hey, people are talking about his senility. But that piece was so watered down that what was the point of even running that?
I'm surprised they spent so much time on it, and that's what they came up with. But again, it helped Biden because it certainly did help Biden. Piece. Now, it hurt the Democratic Party because if Trump wins, history is going to show, of course, if they'd replaced him sooner with anybody, including Harris, they'd have had a better chance rather than rushing her into this. But how there could not be, she's not been asked about it. She was in the town hall the other day, but she's not explained her connection to this cover-up. Kind of incredible.
What was her connection to the what is the truth?
I don't think she was heavily involved with it because that wasn't her responsibility, right? She wasn't in charge of making sure the president's okay. Now, you could argue they should have been, but that really is not the role of any vice president, let alone this one. Again, he had good days and bad days, and he had good hours of the day and bad hours of the day. So my guess is when she saw him, most of the time he was fine. But I'm sure, just by the law of averages, I'm sure she saw him when he was not.
Well, she must have known.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was a kid and going into this business and hearing people speak derisively of the White House press corps during the 1930s, which covered up the fact, supposedly, that FDR was in a wheelchair, and thinking, how could that, that's so North Korean.
Yeah.
That could never happen again.
Yeah. I've long been a critic of the press. I think that the degree to which Trump was helped from 15 onward with the press hostility is obvious. But this one really frightens me. It really frightens me that it's beyond just North Korea or communist China. It's beyond that. It's the fact that it's occurring in a society with alternative media and social media and White House briefings, and reporters presumably wanted to make their bones by getting big stories. No one reported it. When it was clear they needed to turn, they just turned against him. No accountability for themselves or for the people in the government who engaged in the cover-up with them. I just find it frightening. Not just, it's fun to say it's a big media scandal and provocative to say it, but I find it frightening that could happen in this country now. I find it frightening with all the media that we have, different from back when other presidents, Kennedy, Roosevelt, etc. Wilson, this is now. This is the age of transparency. And had he not had a bad debate, he'd still be running for president. I find it frightening.
How did that debate happen?
Well, there are a lot of Republicans who say it was a setup and there were people who knew he'd do badly and they made him debate to force him out. I just don't believe that based on what I know. He was on track to lose. Okay. And there was no intervening event that they saw could turn things around.
He was on track to lose before that debate?
Yeah. He had one path to win, which was to win the 3 Great Lakes states and Nebraska 2 CD. And he was behind in Pennsylvania.
I don't remember ever reading that story. Also, there seems like there's a lot of pressure not to report what the data show, which is, if a Democratic candidate or president is behind, no one wants to report that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
Well, it's true if it's a Democrat.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. He was on track to lose. He might have lost all 7 battleground states, and he was in trouble in New Mexico and in Virginia and in Minnesota. Not as bad trouble as he was after the debate. But before the debate, things were very grim.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He had one electoral college path. and it was not in state.
I just don't remember ever reading that.
It's true.